When Rockgrove released, the developers upped the difficulty over previous trials by quite a bit. Its hard mode is a notorious wall, with players often struggling to get there clear. Rockgrove is also a support-intensive trial that demands a lot from healers. Good support technique can make or break a Planesbreaker prog. Since the trial has been around for a while now, in this video I'm going to cover some modern healing techniques for a basic get me a 300k Planesbreaker easily type prog. The tips and tricks for healing this hard mode. The difficulty of Rockgrove is high enough that I suggest checking out multiple guides on this content, as you'll really want to study this place. Sea Unicorn is an excellent resource for healers who has made in-depth guides on Rockgrove. I'll link her channel and some other useful POVs in the description. Trash. To save time getting to the first boss, one tank will leapfrog the group, pre-pulling adds before the main group arrives. If your pre-pulling tank is very talented, they will be able to do the pre-pull by themselves. Many tanks will need a healer to accompany them in order to survive. Make sure to supply this tank with synergies in addition to healing them. If you're not going for a high score, the snake is a waste of time, so skip it and cut behind this tree for speed. This still counts for Planesbreaker. This brings us to the first dangerous trash. One ad, the Soul Weaver, places shields on ads in the stack, and when the shields are burned down by your group, they burst, doing damage that can one-shot. You need to roll dodge when the shields burst. You'll get a feel for the timing when your group is consistent. Trash can also put an expanding AOE on you that will explode. You cannot roll dodge your own AOE's damage, but if you are in the circle of another player, you must roll dodge theirs just before it explodes. Ideally, the whole team stacks these together and roll dodges in unison so as to remain in heals. However, with the popularity of Coral Riptide and Arcanist, lots of roll dodges may not be practical, and players with the AOE will need to do a strat that involves running the AOE out of group. Be mindful of any dots on them if they do. Again, one tank will run ahead to pre-pull. After placing your buffs and debuffs, chase after them if they need healer support and heal them as before. The first boss is Oaks. Technique is very important for healers here. Make sure to be in triple swift jewelry for this fight, as you will need it to manage mechanics. The Kite healer especially should be triple swift, but I run triple swift regardless of which healer I am personally. This lets us not only cancel Oaks' charge, but lets us cleanse Poison Spits before Oaks charges, which sets us up for success in the execute phase. It is very important you cleanse the first spit before the first ever charge. Sork does have Bolt Escape, but it will still need some swift pieces. This diagram shows the current popular stacking strategy for Oaks, and I'll be using it as the strategy for this video. The start of the fight should flow like this. Pull Oaks and burn to the first mini. If the burn is right, he will get pushed to summon the first mini before doing any other mechanic. You can stay with group until then. As the first mini lands, kite out to center to catch the first spit. Once you see the spit fly out of Oaks' mouth, start making your way to your cleanse pool. Immediately run the spit into the entrance left cleanse pool if you are the kite healer, and then return to center to catch first charge. It's very important to cleanse this spit before the first charge, or you will end up with a situation in execute where you will have your cleanse pool permanently closed off and will be holding spit for too long. The group healer can be a little slower into their pool if they need to heavy attack for Rojo, but the faster to cleanse the better. Group healer uses exit left pool. A rule of thumb I find handy for catching charge is imagining a 90-degree angle between the mini, Oaks, and the pathing line I will run in to cancel charge. While you can successfully cancel the charge from any path, imagining this 90-degree best line helps you plan where to place poison puddles. Poison spits while on you drop poison puddles under you every 2 seconds, aka every 2 skill casts. Imagining a best line helps you avoid dropping those puddles in your way when you go to cancel Oaks' charge. Another good rule of thumb is to let 3 puddles drop in one area, then move to a different area and drop another 3, leaving your imaginary running line free of poisons. Dropping at most 3 puddles in one area also helps prevent you from boxing yourself in with the poison puddles. Once you've filled up an area with 3, the older puddles will fade so you can keep swapping between 2 different spots. To cancel first charge's Kite Healer, simply run in full speed from about the arena's midpoint and stand right next to Oaks once you see your head light up with the charge target indicator. A speed skill is often used. After a moment, roll dodge. The timing takes some practice, but it is simple once you get used to it. I block while standing next to Oaks right before roll dodging as a habit. Sometimes there's an AOE under him and chip damage. It may also help to keep your character from overshooting its position. Try to make sure your roll dodge does not go into the group. Sometimes cancels don't go smoothly, and he does a jaw snap that acts like an AOE right after the canceled charge, so if you roll into group, you can sometimes kill a DPS. During charge, the other players should not be further than the mini's hip to ensure that they do not accidentally get the charge. The other players should also not be closer to Oaks than halfway between the mini and Oaks to ensure that they do not get snapped by Oaks. They should stand around in the area I've circled. To cancel the second charge as group healer is a little trickier. Oaks will pick the second charge target a moment after he does the snap when he concludes the first charge. It doesn't line up as well with the red charge target indicator the way that the first charge does. After the moment he snaps, you can assume you've been picked and make your run into Oaks. If done perfectly, it's similar to first charge where you pause for a moment and then roll dodge. Often the second charge is a little more rushed and you'll end up rolling the moment you reach Oaks. The second charge has a much different feel to it than first charge, so if you've experienced charges as group heal or kite heal and are switching roles for the first time, expect the timing to feel different. If your kite healer is desperate for a cleanse and execute while a charge is incoming, you can switch with them and take first charge, giving them time to cleanse and return to position for second charge. Try not to do this unless necessary. It should not happen frequently. The minis do a chain pull mechanic that picks two people at random and cannot be avoided. If you're pulled into a mini while waiting for a poison spit, call out chained to your team so they can anticipate a potential bad poison. In execute, because the cleanse pools get permanently sealed off as the fight goes on, one healer will have to hold their poison while the other cleanses. The popular Oak strategy featured here ensures the further pools you don't use will close off first. In execute, when only one cleanse pool remains, have the kite healer hold spit and have the group healer immediately cleanse without delay. The kite healer will cleanse once the final pool reopens, so they'll be using exit left for once, and the group healer and off tank will catch spit and hold spit while that happens. To clarify, when one pool remains, Kite holds first and group heal cleanses. Then, when it reopens, Kite cleanses and the off tank and group healer will catch and hold spits while Oaks is executed. Sometimes the Kite heal can make it back in time for spit, in which case the healer can call off the OT coming middle for spit. To survive poison while holding, waiting for the pool, make sure to keep all your sticky hots up and make sure to get cross heals from your co-healer. With the damage players have these days, Oaks should die shortly after the Kite healer cleanses the poison they were holding, waiting for the pool and execute. It can even die before the Kite cleansing is necessary. If your fight time is longer than what's typical these days and you're not going for Planesbreaker, like you're just going for the hard mode, the poison mechanic can be cheesed in execute by having two non-essential players sacrifice themselves. They catch poison and then stand next to group and die and then get rezzed. The last boss is a burn check, so it's not a good sign if you have to do this. Trash after Oaks is like the dangerous pull from before with the Soul Weaver, except almost every pull is the dangerous pull. Simply roll dodge the shield as before, and manage the AOEs. Burning these dangerous adds quickly is very important, so your team will need to plan ult dumps on every pull. Certain DPS will be assigned to ultimate on certain ad pulls. Healers should make use of things like Pillagers, Crypt Cannon, and ultimate potions. You can even plan to have a barrier on every pull for more safety. The second boss is one of the hardest in the game. A big part of the problem is supports misunderstanding their roles. One healer is assigned the main tank, and the other healer is assigned the off tank. The off tank is in the most danger of any player on this fight and requires the most attention and most healing. Any tank while in transition should also be considered to be in danger. The Kite healer is assigned the main tank, and their job is to get portal beams. The main tank should just need Illustrious healing under them at all times, or a similar AoE hot, although Illustrious keeps things simple and easy. The main tank may need an occasional orb as well. The Kite heal or main tank healer can send everything else towards the off tank to help support them. The group healer is assigned the off tank, and they are responsible for calling out incoming curses towards the group. It's important to understand that the off tank and not the DPS should be the main focus of the healer. DPS take very little damage once they're used to this fight. Also, they are aligned with the OT's positioning and catch off heals easily. The hard mode portal cone is divided into 3 slices, and only the middle one will suck you into the portal, causing a wipe. This property of the cone can be used by the Kite healer to tow into the cone safely to catch a beam that may seem unreachable. The Kite healer should be triple swift or have a teleport skill like Bolt Escape to get the beams as fast as possible. The DPS will dot out in the portal if the beam is not grabbed immediately. The portal team leader should anticipate when they'll reach their beam and call out beaming in 3, 2, 1 so that the healer can begin preparing for the beam. Once the beam appears up top, the Kite healer calls out either getting it or rebeam. Rebeam should be a last resort callout only for a beam that will not be obtainable. If you're doing the fight correctly, probably about 80% or more of all beams should be gettable. A rebeam is one that is about to enter a slow-moving cone before the healer can rush over and grab it prior to the danger zone of the cone reaching it. The beam can be cancelled to get the DPS out of the portal faster. Once the beam channel starts after you interact with it, tap block, and this will cancel the beam and pop the DPS out of portal early. Do this always. A rule of thumb I've found is that first portal beams tend to be in the path of the oncoming cone. This may have to do with first portal being the fastest to clear as it has less ghosts in it. Also, faster portals mean slower cones up top. Each subsequent portal gets harder with more ghosts. To anticipate this, when I hear the first portal team start their countdown, I throw a fresh Illustrious under the main tank and start backing up from group towards the oncoming cone. This way I can grab the beam before the slow cone reaches it, but if I'm wrong, I can just sprint over to the faraway beam with Swift plus a speed skill and still get it. Another rule of thumb I've found is that second portal and later portal beams get more and more likely to be trailing the cone and be ahead of group. For those portals, I tend to stay around group if the cone is half the arena away from group, or if the cone is approaching group, I move ahead of the group anticipating a beam that will be in the cone's wake. These rules of thumb are very general and often won't hold. Lots of reps will help you understand when you can adhere to them or not. When catching curses, it is important to cross-heal with your co-healer. You should both be near each other to receive each other's sticky hots. After curse goes out, push into group for a moment to catch more of your own healing, especially important for cleaving these ghosts that will spawn in the second phase. Then, back away when you have 3 seconds left on your curse timer. Ideally be back and to the right as curses spin counterclockwise, and this will help them curl away from the group usually. The exact distance may take some practice. You can pin stack your co-healer as you explode, as long as you are both not moving a full second before the curse explosion. You'll be immune to each other if you are perfectly pin stacked. Do not do this if your curses are out of sync. For example, if you or your co-healer caught a curse that wasn't applied via distance from the boss. Melee attack ghosts spawn in the second phase. They can kill you via chip damage, especially while you have a curse. They are slow, so just run away from them until it is safe for you to push into group for a moment, whereby they will get cleaved. As a healer, because of your positioning, you shouldn't have to roll dodge on this fight, so I'll drop Expert Evasion for Fortified for slightly more mitigation on this fight. Bahsei is the only fight in ESO where I do this. Understand that Expert Evasion is mandatory on Oaks and Xalvakka. Also, Fortified is usually useless on a healer. Use a situationally dynamic rotation. Rather than robotically following ability timers, recast things when the OT is within range. For example, Vigor on the OT regardless of its timer. They may not have gotten the sticky hot because they were away stacking of bombs. If you're near the walls of the arena, it's a good idea to perm block after the 50% phase starts, as you won't have time to react to the firewalls that start spawning. Ideally be more middle of the arena after 50%. Meteors, which start at 30%, do damage in a large AOE, so if you're standing near one, block, and expect to heal yourself or anyone near it more. Starting position for Bahsei is just behind the group, as it can quickly do the curse mechanic after the fight starts. Groups tend to either hard pull Bahsei where she spawns, or drag her to the middle left of the arena. Either strategy works fine. You might be assigned to help chain archers as a healer, so grab them if they spawn at the beginning. Delayed archers, if they spawn after first cone, can be chained in one at a time when it's safe to do so. Their AoE can be roll dodged, so they are not the priority. You can let Bahsei do her first channel for extra burn if neither Abomination nor Cone have yet to be summoned. If Cone spawns without curses having gone out in the fight yet, the DPS need to follow Bahsei as the tank transitions for Cone, or they could catch curses by accident. Curses will usually occur shortly after first cone if they have not happened yet. Some groups may have their curse callout healer remind DPS to follow boss if that is the case. QCell's Rockgrove Helper add-on is very useful here as it will instantly tell you the cone's direction. If you are on console, unfortunately you will have to watch the eyeball and cone to see what direction it moves towards before you know the rotation. This unfortunately results in a damage loss due to delay. Ideally, with the burn groups have these days, do a 2-portal Bahsei. Try for a 3-portal if that is out of reach. This strategy is easier on everyone except the off-tank, and is often considered the most consistent strategy as it has less points of failure. Portals get harder and harder the more you have to do, not only for the portal team but for the kite healer as well. My suggestion is that if a 3-portal is out of reach, work on fixing your strategy, damage, and gameplay until it is doable. A 4 or more portal is going to be needlessly difficult with the damage we have now. With portals beyond 3, it is more likely other players will have to help the kite healer with beam grabbing. So if you're determined to do too many portals, keep that in mind. So with the 2 or 3 portal strat after first cone, the ideal way to push this is to have 2 to 3 bombs on your off tank at all times. You keep them near enough Bahsei that the cleave is constant on all targets. If done right, this should keep pushing Bahsei to summon more and more abominations, so you're not likely to get a curse mechanic until around the time for second cone to occur. The tanks will slow march the targets in a conga line along the outside of the arena. On the straightway, you can kinda stand just behind the group and a little ahead so they're moving into your heels as you move. Positioning for this is being shown now. As second cone is about to come up, prepare for a curse at any moment. Pay attention to the MT as they will pull away from group to aim the cone. Keep your illustrious on them. The second cone will spawn. Keep in mind if it's a bad cone, the tanks will have to reposition, so plan to keep heals available to them as they move. Around this time you should hopefully have pushed the boss into second phase, when the bombs stop spawning and the bonkers spawn instead. New mechanics like firewalls, ghosts, bonker explosions, and eventually meteors will be added to the fight. The off-tank will now take a position near Bahsei, so healing the 2 tanks should get a little easier. Just be aware that they are in danger anytime they need to move. Also be aware the bonker puts a dot on the off-tank that really hurts, so they're still in danger just like with the bombs. With all that in mind, hopefully after a bunch of reps you'll eventually beat this boss. It will take practice. Lots of practice. For post-Bahsei trash, this trash adds a new mechanic where the furthest player from the stack will get a large AoE that puts a dot on anyone in it. Have the kite healer stand out of group and catch it so the group doesn't get the dot. Ash Titan, this is pretty much Asylum Sanctorium. If you're a Warden healer, run Shimmering Shield because it negates the mechanic. Healers should kite in the back and leave the DPS space while making sure to keep them healed. Xalvakka, the final boss, this fight should be free. It's the easiest part of Planesbreaker. All it is a DPS check. For healers, kiting during Deadstar helps your DPS keep burning because they will have a few less Deadstars to avoid. Have one healer go far right and the other far left during Deadstar. A fire mechanic called Manifold serves as a heal check. The main tank and 2 other random players will get the heal check. The tank stays in position, and the DPS call out left or right and move to Xalvakka's left or right hip to relieve pressure on the main group as the mechanic shoots fire damage out behind the player that has it. Keep up all hots and spam heal through this mechanic. You may get a blob on you from the ghosts when they die. Just shed it with synergy on another blob to build one big one and keep the floor clean. Your team can pick a pre-designated spot for blob placement. Where is up to them. Eventually, you are forced to run up some stairs. While doing the run, put your blood altar on the bottom floor. Heal as you make your way up. Xalvakka has a triple split phase, and you have to find the real Xalvakka and burn it among the 3 to end the phase. The whole arena does damage during the phase, so keep your hots up on everyone so they don't dot out. The group needs to stay together to help keep it healed. The third floor adds a hole in the center. One healer should stay ahead of the group and serve as a Deadstar front kite. It shouldn't matter which healer goes where, it's whatever your group wants to do based on uptimes. The other healer should stay with group but back away from them to kite Deadstars off them. The MT should position closest to the hole during Deadstars, and the healers should be far front and far back during kite to give the DPS 180 degrees of space around Xalvakka during Deadstar.
As long as people stay alive and do damage, Xalvakka should die with ease.
These tips and tricks would not have been possible without Icky Piggy, Noodle, Antonia, and Hooga Booga giving me advice over the years. Please support their channels to thank them, and I will link them in the description if they have one. Special thanks to Icky Piggy for helping me fact check some of this information. Any mistakes, I assure you, are mine and not hers. If you like the content I'm making, please let me know by subscribing to the channel.